Alright, good morning everyone. We are here with break for 12. This is our third 2026 League Heroes case break. And our team list for this one: Broncos, Johnny D; Raiders, Craig Milson; Bulldogs, Terry Cadman; Sharks, Johnny D; Dolphins, go Carlin; Titans, Greg King. If you're watching, Greg, please join the Facebook group. We've had a couple of people trying to trade with you. Not sure if you're interested, but the offers are there. Manly, Lee Marschall; Storm, go Carlin; Knights, Lee Marschall; Cowboys, go Carlin; Eels, Craig Milson; Panthers, Rod Staples. Same for you, Rod. If you're watching, mate, join the group. Been trying to tag you in there. You come up and then I realise you're not in the group still, so... Rabbitohs, Terry Cadman; Dragons, Rodney White; Roosters, Maria Lagan; Warriors, Jacob Tupou; and Tigers, Johnny D. Alright, here we are. We have our case right there. Let's bring the chat up and my team list. And oh, that's right, I've still got that one. Get rid of that. There we go. Alright, here we are. Get open. We'll get these out and get stuck straight into it.
You have to have that line.
It really does stuff with the lighting over here. I figured that's eventually, once playing with it all, but yeah, if you need it at the moment, that's probably more important to an extent. Turn that light back on for Kimmy. Alright, 2 more to get out. We do have some singles up on the site, guys, with plenty more to scan and list. It is a big job and we will get through it as quick as we can. Morning, Lee. Game breakers: Kurt Capewell for the Warriors. Luca Moretti in the Luminous for Eels. Oh, no way. Well, for this is pretty special. This is our first one we've managed to hit, so we are going to keep that for the end, and it is a Golden Treasures, guys, so I'm pretty excited. It was actually one of the questions I asked if we had hit one over the weekend, and that is the first one we have opened at all, so big hit. James Fisher-Harris, Luminous for the Warriors. Bang, Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous, Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Game breakers: Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Val Holmes for the Dragons. League Heads, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Big Tino for Titans. First box off the rank, hitting the golden treasure. What a hit. Die cut, Sanua Taruba for Tigers. Luminous Kale Iro for the Sharks. League Heads, Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Bang KO Weeks for Raiders. Luminous Jason Saab for Manly. League Heads, Joseph Atapane for the Raiders. Luminous Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Die cut, Sean Russell for the Eels. Luminous Gehabat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Game Breakers, Jesse Colhoun for the Sharks. Luminous Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Triumph, Newcastle Knights in the team. Luminous Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. League Heads, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous Keezy Apps for the Tigers. Bang Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Luminous Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. League Heads, Max King for the Bulldogs. Luminous Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. League Heads, Alifiana Khan Piera for Titans. Luminous Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Die cut Maratha Nakor for the Warriors. Luminous Liam Martin for Panthers. Game Breakers, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Apasai Coruscant for Tigers. League Heads, Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Game Breakers, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous Asaya Iongi for the Eels. Bang Tyron Wishart for Storm. Luminous Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. League heads Roger Tuivasa Check for the Warriors. Matt Burton Luminous for the Bulldogs. Gladiators Jerome Hughes for the Storm. Number 63. Luminous Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Game Breakers Cameron Munster for the Storm. Luminous Jerome Luai for the Tigers. League heads Renato Molitalo for the Sharks. Luminous Hudson Young for the Raiders. Game Breakers Payne Huss for the Broncos. Luminous Aleka Halasima for the Warriors. Bang Philip Semi for the Titans. Luminous Hammer Fido for the Dolphins. League heads Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Die cut Max Plath for the Dolphins. Luminous Nico Hines for the Sharks. Game Breakers Emily Bass for the Tigers. Luminous Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Red Triumph Jareem Bula for the Tigers. Luminous Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Mercury Nathan Cleary for the Panthers, number 380. Got a couple of pick your team breaks, guys, now listed if you haven't already seen them. Dean Mariner, Luminous for the Broncos. We listed a spot raz for Cowboys in break 414, which left only Newcastle Knights and Dragons in that one. League heads Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Game Breakers Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Nelson Asofa Solomona for Storm. Bang. Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. League Heads, Gahamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. A Luminous Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Alright, that's our first box done. League Heads, Cam Munster for Storm. Luminous Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Game Breakers, Olivia Higgins for the Knights. Luminous Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Bang Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Luminous Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. League Heads, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Luminous Ethan Bullymore for Manly. Die cut Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Jesse Colhoun, Luminous for Sharks. Bang Connor Watson for the Roosters. Kurt Capewell, Luminous for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Die cut Benny Trbojevic for Manly. Ruben Cotter, Luminous for Cowboys. League Heads, Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Luminous Jareem Buller for the Tigers. Game Breakers, Billy Smith for the Roosters. Xavier Coates, Luminous for the Storm. League Heads, Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Luminous Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Bang Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Dylan Egan, Luminous for the Dragons. Game Breakers, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Abby Church for the Eels. And it's a Dally M Rookie of the Year. League heads, Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Oh, Luminous Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. Mercury Luke Brooks for Manly. Number 23. Luminous Josiah Yo for Panthers. League heads, Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous Dylan Brown for Knights. Bang, Dominic Young for Knights. Luminous Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Gladiators, Dream Buller, number 587 for the Tigers. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Die cut Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous Alex Twal for Tigers. League heads, Jackson Purdue for Cowboys. Luminous Tyron Wishart for Storm. Red Triumph in the team for Broncos. Luminous Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. Game Breakers, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Luminous Braden Trindle for the Sharks. League heads, Dylan Walker for the Eels. Luminous Sam Verrills for Titans. Bang Brian Top for Panthers. Luminous Bradman Best for the Knights. Game Breakers, Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Luminous Junior Paulo for the Eels. Red Triumph, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous Felice Kafusi for Dolphins. League heads, Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Luminous Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Die cut Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Luminous Lachlan Ilias for the Dragons. League heads, Sam Walker for the Roosters. Luminous, Billy Smith for the Roosters. Game breakers, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Max King, Luminous for the Bulldogs. Bang, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Lyshan Albert Jones for the Warriors. Fifth last packet for our second box. League heads, Reece Walsh for Broncos. Luminous, Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Game breakers, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous, Tolator Koala for Manly. Die cut, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Dylan Edwards for the Panthers. Don't forget, guys, break 413, a full case of 26 League Heroes Hobby and a full case of 26 League Heroes Starters. It is random team. Chance, Nico Klokstad, League heads for Warriors. Payne Haas, League Luminous for Broncos. Game breakers, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Alright, box number 3. League heads, Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Luminous, Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs. Die cut, Katoni Staggs for the Broncos. White, Luminous for the Roosters. League heads, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Luminous, Jack Bostock for Dolphins. Game breakers, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Lindsay Smith for the Panthers. What have we got? Another Dally M Predictor. Luminous, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. League heads, Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Luminous Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Bang, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Tommy Turbo for Manly. Game Breakers, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Luminous Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. League Heads, Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Luminous Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Gladiators, Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. Number 54. Luminous Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. League Heads, Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Luminous Tiana Penatani Gray for the Sharks. Yeah. I don't know what to comment on that, Lee, mate. It's, yeah. Unfortunately, you're not the only one, buddy. There are plenty of people in that same boat. Game Breakers, Dylan Egan for the Dragons. Luminous Terrell May for the Tigers. Bang, Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. Luminous Jack Williams for the Eels. League Head, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Stefano Uchikamanu for Storm. Mercury, Jareem Fuller for the Tigers. Number 197. Luminous KO Weeks for the Raiders. Game Breakers, Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. Luminous Beau Fermor for the Titans. Die-cut Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Luminous Jason Tormalolo for Cowboys. Bang, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous Jake Trbojevic for Manly.
You have a few people watching at the moment, Joe?
I've got 8 at the moment.
Well, the lucky 8 are going to get the heads up on the new promotion competition we're doing. One game each week, we're going to pick score, say Brisbane Penrith from this week for argument's sake. Pick the score, if they get it right, it's a $50 voucher. they don't get it right, jackpots to the next week.
Alright.
$75 voucher goes up $25 a week.
Alright, there we go.
We'll post finer details shortly, but that's what we're going to start.
There you go. That's the first time I'm hearing about it.
We only just decided to do it.
We just talked about it.
On this one, guys, I am noticing the pack was slightly open at the end, and the cards have that press from the end on it. So yeah, so we'll have a look. There's one of the strips that's come off the end of one of them. So the die cut doesn't look to be damaged. Griffin name for the Cowboys. Luminous Emma Veron for the Titans. Sharks, sorry. So the gist of that comp that I got, guys, pick the score. We will pick a game for each round. And if someone doesn't pick it, the prize will jackpot for the next round, and I think it's $25 per round. So if someone wins it for round 1, it'll be $25 for round 2. If nobody wins,
no, if somebody wins it, it starts off again at 50.
50. There you go.
Yeah,
so the
time.
lowest one's 50, but it goes up by 25. There we go.
Yeah.
Not a bad little.
Yeah, they got to have had a purchase this year to qualify for entry 2026.
There you go. Must have made a purchase in 2026 to be eligible. Bang, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous Samula Fainu for the Tigers. And what's that? Just going to be a post in the group, Dad?
Yeah, we'll just put it up each Monday or so. Give them a chance to respond all week and go from there.
Yeah, so look out for the post in the group, guys. League heads, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous Ray Stone for the Dolphins.
Yes, we now have the tipping comp, $50 voucher.
Yeah.
So there's 2 different ones each week.
Well, that's it. If you haven't already joined the free tipping comp, guys, go and join it. There's only 2 games gone, so you're still within a chance to win the first round. $50 gift card up for grabs each round in that one. Game breakers, Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins, and Luminous Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. There is a post tagged in the Facebook group, but all the information's also on the FAQ page on the website for that one. League heads, KO Weeks for Raiders. Luminous Philip Semi for Titans. Red Triumph for the Melbourne Storm. Luminous Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Bang Kale Iro for the Sharks. Luminous Dane Gagai. Getting a bit high with those cards. Have to try and remember to keep them lower. I just noticed on my screen. Oh no, hang on. That's because I scrolled down here. That's better. I was wondering why it looked like it was cut off the top. League heads, Brian To'o for Panthers. Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters. Game breakers, Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Moses Sulai, Luminous for the Dragons. Game Breakers Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Die cut Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Luminous Dylan Walker for the Eels. League Heads Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Luminous Zahara Tamara for the Raiders. Game Breakers Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Brian Top Luminous for Panthers. Bang Greg Marschall for the Knights. Luminous Luke Lawlilly for the Tigers. Red Triumph Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. League Heads Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Game Breakers Reese Walsh for Broncos. Luminous Blake Brayley for the Sharks. And last packet for our third box. League Heads Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous Tui Kamikimika for the Storm. Alright. Box number 4. Game Breakers Tuika Kimika for the Storm. Luminous Felice Kafusi for Dolphins. Bang Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins. Luminous Ethan Strange for the Raiders. League Heads Tom Gilbert for Dolphins. Luminous Lachlan Ilias for Dragons. Die cut Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. Luminous Billy Smith for Roosters. League Heads Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Max King for the Bulldogs. Bang Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Luminous Lyshan Albert Jones for the Warriors. Game Breakers Tolator Koala for Manly. Luminous Reece Welsh for Broncos. League Heads Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous Tolator Koala for Manly. Mercury AJ Brimson for the Titans, number 357. Luminous Dylan Edwards for Panthers. League Heads Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Payne Haas for the Broncos. Game Breakers Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. League Heads Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Die cut Renato Mulatalo for the Sharks. Luminous Angus Crichton for the Roosters. League Heads Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Bang Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. Oh, yeah. Game Breakers Isaac Tago for Panthers. Luminous Ethan Bullymore for Manly. Red Triumph, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jesse Colhoun for the Sharks. Die cut Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous Junior Paulo for the Eels. Game Breakers Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Luminous Xavier Willison for the Broncos. League Heads James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Tommy Turbo for Manly. Bang, Isaac Tago for Panthers. Luminous Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Zach Labert for the Cowboys. Luminous Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. League heads, Ben Hunt for Manly. Broncos, my bad. Roger Tuivasa Sheck Luminous for the Warriors. League heads, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Tiana Penatani Gray for the Sharks. Die cut Marcelo Montoya for the Bulldogs. Luminous Terrell May for Tigers. Game breakers, Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous Jack Williams for the Eels. Bang, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Is that for 2026 League Heroes, Rodney, or older stuff? Stefano Uzikamanu for the Storm. League heads, Sebastian Chris for Raiders. Luminous KO Weeks for Raiders. Game breakers, Anessa Biddle for Sharks. Luminous Beau Fermor for the Titans. Red Triumph, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Die cut, David Clemmer for the Dragons. Luminous Alex Twile for the Tigers. League heads, Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous Tyron Wishart for Storm. Game breakers, Xavier Willison for Broncos. Luminous Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. 3 packets left for our 4th box. Bang, Josh Papali'i for the Eels. Luminous Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Gladiators, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders, number 487. Luminous Sam Verrills for the Titans. And lucky last for the box. League heads, Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Bradman Best for the Knights. And that's another box down. Alright, box number 5. Game breakers, Chance Nicole Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. League heads, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Angelina Teka Rangat Katoa for the Bulldogs. That's a mouthful. Bang Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Luminous Zach Lomax for the Eels. League heads, Mawaki Fodawaka for Titans. Luminous Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Die cut Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous Jamie Humphreys for Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Billy Walters for the Broncos. Bang Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. And then we have an Origin Predictor. League heads, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous Greg Marschall for the Knights. Die cut Alifiana Khan Piera for the Titans. Luminous Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. League heads, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Daniel Tupou, Luminous for the Roosters. Bang Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Game breakers, Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous Carl Lawton for the Cowboys. League heads, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Red Triumph, Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Luminous Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. League Heads, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Luminous Trent LaRoe for Storm. Game Breakers, Julia Robinson for Broncos. Luminous Jamal Fogarty for Manly. Bang Alifiana Khan Piera for Titans. Luminous AJ Brimson for Titans. Bang Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous Wade Egan for the Warriors. Die cut Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Luminous Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Red Triumph in the team for Knights. Luminous Georgia Hale for the Titans. Game Breakers, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous Josh Kerr for the Dragons. Bang Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Luminous Ruben Garrick for Manly. League Heads, Marky Mark for Roosters. Luminous Mitch Kenny for Panthers. Game Breakers, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Luminous Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. League Heads, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Luminous Bailey Haywood for Bulldogs. Game Breakers, Tegan Demick for the Bulldogs. Luminous Tyson Frizzell for Knights. Gladiators, Asaya Papali'i for the Panthers. Number 473. Luminous Jalen DeGroot for Titans. Excuse me. League Heads, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Luminous Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Game Breakers, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous Cassie Tohu Hiku for the Eels. Die cut Gehabat Shavarsky for the Broncos. Marky Mark in the Luminous for Roosters. League heads, Keon Colomatengi for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Game breakers, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous, Latu Fainu for the Tigers. League heads, Harry Grant for Storm. Luminous, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Mercury, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Number 221. Luminous, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Second last pack for the box. Die cut, Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Luminous, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Asaya Katoa for the Dolphins. Keanu Kinney, Luminous for the Titans. And that's the end of another box. Let's go. Box number 6. Dalium Predictor. Nice little row happening there now. Luminous, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. League heads, Mitch Kenny for Panthers. Luminous, Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Gladiators, AJ Brimson for the Titans, number 360. Luminous, Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Tamale for the Raiders. Game breakers, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Luminous, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs.
I don't have it too long. What the different variations we have.
Die cut, Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous, Philip Sammy for the Titans. Bang, Greg Marschall for the Knights. Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters. Game Breakers Stephen Crichton for Bulldogs. Luminous Zahara Tamara for the Raiders. League Heads Big Tino for Titans. Luminous Brian To'o for Panthers. League Heads Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. Luminous Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. League Heads Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Game Breakers Dane Gagai for the Knights. Luminous for the Storm. Red Triumph Payne Haas for the Broncos. Luminous Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. League Heads Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous White for the Roosters. Bang Renato Molitalo for the Sharks. Luminous Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Game Breakers Ali for the Warriors. Luminous Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs. League Heads Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Die cut Trent LaRoe for Storm. Tui Kamikamika for Storm in the Luminous. Game Breakers Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Luminous Moses Leota for Panthers. Mercury Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys, number 434. Luminous Murata Nakor for the Warriors. Let's get our next pack of sleeves ready to go. Bang Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Luminous Samula Fainu for Tigers. League Heads for Storm. Luminous Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Bang, Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Adam Reynolds for Broncos. League heads, Nico Hines for the Sharks. And Luminous, Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Bang, Gehabat Shabaski for the Broncos. Luminous, Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. League heads, Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Luminous, Patrick Carrigan for Broncos. Game breakers, Big Tino for the Titans. Luminous, Dane Gagai for the Knights. Die cut, Isaac Tago for Panthers. Luminous, Emma Veron for Sharks. It's unusual Luminous is on top, but Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. And game breakers, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Die cut, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Lockie Galvin for Bulldogs. Game breakers, Tamale for the Raiders. Luminous, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Bang, Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous, Mackenzie Wheel for Cowboys. Game breakers, Abby Church for the Eels. Luminous, Luke Lawlilly for the Tigers. 3 packets left for our 6th box. League heads, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous, Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Red Triumph for the Warriors in the team. Luminous, Dylan Walker for the Eels. Lucky last, box number 6. League heads, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous, Dylan Lucas for Knights. And that's the end of the box. Box number 6. Now halfway through the case. Alright. Straight into box number 7. Game breakers, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Game breakers, Patricia Malipo for the Warriors. Luminous Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luca Moretti, Luminous for the Eels. Game breakers, Nita Maynard Perrin for the Dragons. Luminous Abby Church for the Eels. Red Triumph for the Raiders. Luminous Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. League heads, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. And we got another predictor, Dally M. Luminous James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. League heads, Jareem Buller for the Tigers. Luminous Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. League heads, Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. League heads, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous Asaya Yongi for the Eels. Bang Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous Xavier Coates for Storm. League heads, Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Kurt Capewell, Luminous for Warriors. Mercury, Xavier Savage for the Raiders, 152. Luminous Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Die cut, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous Liam Martin for Panthers. Game breakers, Jalen DeGroot for Titans. Luminous Dean Mariner for Broncos. League heads, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous Akasai Coruscant for the Tigers. Red Triumph, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Game breakers, Gehamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Halfway through box number 7. Bang, Jerome Luai for Tigers. Luminous Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. Bang, Tamale for the Raiders. Luminous Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Die cut Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Luminous Hammer Fido for the Dolphins. Bang, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous Hudson Young for the Raiders. League heads, Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Luminous Dream Buller for the Tigers. Game breakers, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Bang, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Luminous Lehe Hopawate for Manly again. League heads, Payne Haas for Broncos. Luminous Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. League heads, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Game breakers, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Lika Halasima for the Warriors. League heads, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Go away. Tanila Paseka, die cut for Manly. Luminous Dylan Brown for the Knights. League heads, Ethan Bullymore for Manly. Luminous Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Die cut Jeremy Marshall King for the Dolphins. Luminous Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Game breakers, Asaya Iongi for the Eels. Luminous Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Bang Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. 2 packets left for box number 7. Gladiators. Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Number 408. Dylan Egan, Luminous for Dragons. And lucky last for the box. League heads, Lockie Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous Herbie Farmworth for Dolphins. Alright, that's box number 7, done and dusted. Alright, box number 8, let's go. League heads, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous, Casey McLean for Panthers. Red Triumph, Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous, Chance Nickel Clockstad for the Warriors. League heads, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous, Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. Game breakers, Harry Grant for the Storm. Luminous, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Die cut, Alex Seafar for Tigers. Luminous, Satili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. League heads, Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous, Sean Russell for the Eels. Bang Murray Talagi for Cowboys. Luminous, Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. Game breakers, Jamie Chapman for Titans. Luminous, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. League heads, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous, Jermaine McEwen for Knights. Bang, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Luminous, James Tedesco for Roosters. Die cut, Nick Meaney for Storm. Luminous, Max Plath for Dolphins. League heads, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Luminous, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Luminous, Regan Campbell Gillard for Titans. Bang, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous, Jackson Purdue for Cowboys. League heads, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Mercury, Ezra Mam for the Broncos, number 122. Luminous, Tom Starling for the Raiders. Red Triumph, Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. Luminous, Tamika Upton for the Broncos. Bang, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Gladiators, John Bateman for the Cowboys, number 124. Luminous, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. League heads, Molly Olika Artu for Manly. Luminous, Lycan King Togia for Dragons. Game breakers, Kira Dib for the Cowboys. Luminous, Isaac Tago for Panthers. League heads, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous, Alafiana Khan Piera for Titans. Game breakers, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous, Addo Carr for the Eels. Die cut, Nafu White for the Roosters. Luminous, Robert Toya for the Roosters. Game breakers, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous, Samaima Tulfa for the Raiders. League heads, Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Bang, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Jai Gray, Luminous for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Luminous, Reed Marnie for the Cowboys. Die cut, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous, Damien Cook for the Dragons. We've got 7th last packet for box number 8. Bang, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous, Adam Dewey for Tigers. Game Breakers, Dream Buller for Tigers. Luminous, Dominic Young for Knights. League heads, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous, Molly Orlica R2 for Manly. Game Breakers, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Die cut, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous, Mawaki Fodawaika for Titans. League heads, Apasai Coruscant for the Tigers. Luminous, Ali Brigginshaw for the Broncos. Game Breakers, White for the Roosters. Luminous, Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Alright, box number 8 done and dusted. 2/3 of the way through the case. Let's get stuck straight into box number 9. Alright, league heads, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. A Luminous, Ronaldo Molitalo for the Sharks. Game Breakers, Loku Pacifici Tonga for the Dragons. Jacob Saifiti, Luminous for the Knights. League heads, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous, Zach Labert for the Cowboys. Die cut, Reese Walsh for Broncos. Luminous, Loku Pacifici Tonga for the Dragons. Game Breakers, Jerome Hughes for the Storm. Luke Brooks, Luminous for Manly. The league heads, Jack Williams for the Eels. Luminous Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. Bang Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Game breakers, Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. Luminous Georgia Hale for the Titans. Red Triumph, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous Josh Kerr for the Dragons. League heads, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous Ruben Garrick for Manly. Game breakers, Mahalia Murphy for the Eels. Luminous Mitch Kenny for Panthers. Die cut, Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. League heads, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Alifiana Khan Piera for Titans. Luminous Tyson Frizzell for Knights. Bang Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Jalen De Groot for Titans in the Luminous. League heads, Xavier Wilson for the Broncos. Luminous Corey Horsburgh for Raiders. Golden Triumph. Oh, look. Let's leave that one till the end as well. Luminous Cassie Tohi Hiku for the Eels. As I said in the last one, I've got no randomisations to do anymore, so let's start finishing with those big hits. Game breakers, Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Luminous Marky Mark for the Roosters. League heads, Dream Buller for the Tigers. Luminous Sam Walker for the Roosters. Couple of big scratches down that one. Hopefully it's just in the clear plastic. Bang Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous John Bateman for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Tiana Penatani Gray for the Sharks. Luminous Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. League heads, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous, Cameron Munster for Storm. Die cut, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous, Brian Kelly for the Titans. League heads, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Red Triumph, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous, Jesse Southwell for Knights. League heads, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Luciano Leilua for Dragons. Game Breakers, Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous, Katoni Staggs for the Broncos. Bang, Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous, Isaiah Papali'i for the Panthers. League heads, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous, Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Die cut, Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Luminous, Alex Seyfarth for Tigers. Our sixth last packet for box number 9. League heads, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Luminous, Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Bang, Asaya Iongi for the Eels. Luminous, Ali Leitua for Warriors. Gladiators, Blake Brayley for Sharks, number 387. Luminous, Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Game Breakers, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous, Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. Mercury, Bradman Best for the Knights, number 436. Luminous, Mitchell Moses for Eels. And last packet for the box. Bang, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous, Harry Grant for Storm. And that's box number 9. Done and dusted. 3 boxes to go. Let's go. Box number 10. League heads, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Is it 7 silvers plus 10 2 inserts per pack? Yeah, basically. I think that's... one of your inserts is also a luminous, and then I think it's the same as this. Some packs may have a third. I also think in the hobby, some packs may actually have just the luminous. Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous Katoni Stags for the Broncos. Game Breakers, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous Asaya Papali'i for Panthers. Bang Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Luminous Jacob Carraz for Bulldogs. League heads, Tom Starling for the Raiders. Luminous Alex Seifa for Tigers. Mercury Addo Carr for the Eels, number 80. Luminous Keelan Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers, Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous Ali Latua for the Warriors. In the hobby, yes. In the retail, obviously we don't send the base cards out. League heads, Moses Leota for Panthers. Luminous Jordan Ricky for Broncos. Bang Katoni Stags for the Broncos. Luminous Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. League heads, Greg Marschall for the Knights. Luminous Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Die cut Zach Labert for the Cowboys. No worries, Rodney. Harry Grant, Luminous for Storm. Game Breakers, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous Ronaldo Mulatalo for the Sharks. Red Triumph, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Luminous, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. League Heads, Joash Papali'i for Eels. Luminous, Zach Laybutt for Cowboys. Bang, Matthew Tomoko for Raiders. Luminous, Loku Pacifici Tonga for Dragons. League Heads, Samula Fainu for the Tigers. Luminous, Luke Brooks for Manly. Oh, our instant win. We're on a roll, guys. 8 case hits, I would call them. Luminous, Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. So that's a mixture between the predictors, the golden treasures, the instant win. Game breakers, Kale Iro for the Sharks. Luminous, Jesse Southwell for the Knights. Game breakers, Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Gladiators, Teddy for the Roosters, number 490. Luminous, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. League Heads, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous, Ben Trbojevic for Manly. Bang, Kalen Ponga for Knights. Do you think Select will release a mid-season series? I would, based on the AFL and how similar this release is to their AFL stuff, I would say so. Sanua Taruva, Luminance for Tigers, but we'll have to wait and see. Game breakers, Luca Moretti for the Eels. Luminous, Will Penasini for the Eels. Die cut, Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Jonah Pezzett for the Storm. League Heads, Jacob Little for the Dragons. Luminous, Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Game breakers, Alex 12 for Tigers. Luminous, Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. League heads, Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Saratoga Tuki, Luminous for Tigers. Game breakers, Trent LaRoe for Storm. Luminous, Conley Lumilu for Dolphins. Bang, Paps for Storm. Luminous, Samuel Stone Street for Sharks. League heads, Connolly Lumi Lou for the Dolphins. Luminous, Tanila Paseka for Manly. Triumph, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous, Sam Walker for the Roosters. We're up to fifth last packet in the box. Box number 10. Game breakers, Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. John Bateman, Luminous for the Cowboys. League heads, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Jamin Salmon, Luminous for Bulldogs. Die cut, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Luminous, Cameron Munster for Storm. Bang, Chance Nicole Clockstad for the Warriors. Luminous, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Last packet for the box. League heads, Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors and Luminous Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Right. Box number 11. 2 boxes to go. Hopefully we can improve on these. As I said, we've got 8 there already, ranging from the golden treasures to the instant win and predictors, including Origin and Dally M's. So let's see how we go. I'm not sure if there is much else that we can add to that list. Bang, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Actually, the one thing I haven't noticed, and it may be there, I just didn't realise, is a premiership predictor. Samaima Torfa, Luminous for the Raiders. So we could be going for a 9-hit case. Obviously, that doesn't include the Mercuries and the Gladiators. League heads, Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Die cut, Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. League League heads, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Reed Marnie for the Cowboys. Game Breakers, Sophie Holloman for the Raiders. Luminous Damien Cook for the Dragons. Bang Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Red Triumph for the Titans in the team. Luminous Dominic Young for the Knights. League heads, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous Molly Olika R2 for Manly. Get open. There we go. Bang Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Game Breakers, Billy Walters for the Broncos. Luminous Milwaukee Fotowaika for Titans. Die cut Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous Ali Briganshaw for the Broncos. League heads, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Luminous Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Red Triumph, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Jerome Hughes for Storm. Game Breakers, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous Casey McLean for the Panthers. League heads, Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Luminous Chance Nicole Klokstad for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Tyron Wishart for the Storm. Luminous Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. League heads, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. William Kennedy, Luminous for Sharks. Bang Teddy for the Roosters. Luminous Satili Tupanua for Bulldogs. Bang Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous Val Holmes for the Dragons. League heads, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Big Tino for Titans. Game Breakers, Terrell May for Tigers. Luminous Kale Iro for Sharks. League Heads, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Luminous Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Game Breakers, Max Plath for the Dolphins. Luminous Jason Saab for Manly. Die cut Peter Mamazelos for Rabbitohs. Luminous Pats for Storm. League Heads, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Gehamat Shabarsky for Broncos. Mercury, Spencer Lanu for the Roosters, number 71. Jacob Preston, Luminous for the Bulldogs. League Heads, Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous Keezy Apps for Tigers. Bang, Ali Latua for the Warriors. Luminous Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. League Heads, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Die cut Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Luminous Kalen Ponga for Knights. We've got 6 packets left in our 11th box. Game Breakers, Scott Drinkwater for Cowboys. Luminous Jeremiah Nanai for Cowboys. Game Breakers, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous Lycan King Togia for Dragons. Gladiators, Dry Arrow for the Rabbitohs, number 264. Luminous Isaac Tago for Panthers. League Heads, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous Alefiana Khan Piera for Titans. Die cut, Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous Addo Carr for the Eels. And last packet for the box. Game Breakers, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous Robert Toya for Roosters. Alright, that's box 11 done and dusted. We're now up to our last box of the break, box number 12. Alright. Bang Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Carl Lawton in Luminous for Cowboys. League Heads, Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Luminous Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Red Triumph for the team in the Rabbitohs. Luminous Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. The die cut Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous Trent LaRoe for Storm. Game Breakers, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous Jamal Fogarty for Manly. League Heads, Stefano Utikamanu for Storm. Luminous AJ Brimson for Titans. Bang Casey McLean for Panthers. Luminous Murata Nakor for the Warriors. Gladiators, Damien Cook for the Dragons, number 43. Okay, there we go. Luminous Moses Leota for Panthers. League Heads, Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Game Breakers, Joash Papali'i for the Eels. Luminous Mackenzie Wheel for the Cowboys. Bang AJ Brimson for Titans. Luminous Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. League Heads, Sam Verrills for the Titans. Luminous Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Red Triumph, Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Lockie Galvin for the Bulldogs. League heads, Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Luminous, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Game breakers, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous, Hugo Savala for the Roosters. And it's not a Luminous, it's a Luminous. I've said it a couple of times in this break. I don't think I've said it in the others, but anyway. League heads, Marata Nakor for the Warriors. Luminous for the Storm. Die cut, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Luminous, Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Tamale for the Raiders. And that's halfway through our last box. Game breakers, Tanila Paseka for Manly. Luminous, Tom Gilbert for Dolphins. Bang, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous, Ezra Mam for Broncos. League heads, Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Game breakers, Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous, Latu Fanu for Tigers. League heads, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Luminous, Tom Dearden for the Cowboys. Die cut, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous, Keanu Kinney for Titans. Bang, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. League heads, Murray Talagi for Cowboys. Luminous, Angelina for Bulldogs. Die cut, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Luminous, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Game breakers, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Mercury, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs, number 156. Luminous, Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Alex Twal for the Tigers. Luminous, Billy Walters for the Broncos. Game breakers, Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Luminous, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Excuse me. Fourth last packet for the box. Bang, Jackson Purdue for Cowboys. Luminous, Greg Marschall for the Knights. League heads, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. Excuse me. Die cut, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Luminous, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Game breakers, Bo Fermor for the Titans. Luminous, Appy Nichols for the Warriors to finish us off. Alright, let's put that to the side. I know that's an instant win, and that's the golden treasure. So we're going to work our way back to those two finishing with the instant win. Alright, first up, in the gold, Triumph number 40. Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. Hit the corner. Alright, next up, what do we got? Dally M Predictor number 57. Liam Martin for the Panthers. Next, Dally M Predictor Wildcard number 123 for the Roosters. Yes, I honestly think that one will be a good break. I'm looking forward to that one. And that's not just because it's small. Alright, State of Origin Predictor, Stephen Crichton, number 53. And Connor Tracy, Dally M, number 73. Alright, only 3 left to go. And Dally M Rookie Predictor, number 214 for the Knights. Alright, our golden treasures. The first one we have hit. Where's the number? There it is. Number 48. And I'm not going to lie, they look pretty good, guys. Big Tino for the Titans. And if you haven't seen, you have received the Select Golden Treasure card for the Gold Coast Titans. This card entitles you to redeem limited edition Gold Coast Titans cards This card will be redeemed for the equivalent numbered cards. Redemption instructions. Go to the website to redeem. So, yes, nice card. No premiership predictor in this one. Alright, instant win. Last but not least. I lost my team list at some point through that. Oh, here we go. And the man is watching for the Dragons, Rodney White.
And he is a Dragons fan.
There we go. Congratulations. Alright guys, that's it for this one. I will go and confirm in my head whether Stephen Crichton was Bulldogs or Panthers last year, and he will go into that correspondence. I thought he was. I was just had in my head for some reason that he might have been at Panthers. But yes, anyway, guys, that's it for this one. Thank you to everyone for being a part of it. Thank you to those who watched. And thank you especially to Lee and Rodney for jumping in the chat and saying g'day. Always love to hear from you during the break. But until the next one, guys, that is it. That is all, and hope you had a ball.